twin brother got engaged and promised to tell me when the engagement party was, so I could book a flight, but I was never given a date and later found out. They had a big party with 100 guests and told everyone I couldn't make it. If you have a twin, you'll understand how deep that connection runs. People always assume it's this magical, unbreakable bond, like you're two sides of the same coin. And I used to believe that too. Until the day my brother got engaged and didn't even want me there. I'm Ethan, 2 minutes younger than Eric, my identical twin. Growing up, we were inseparable. We had that classic twin telepathy people joke about, except ours was real. I could sense when he was stressed before an exam, and he always knew when I was about to crack a sarcastic joke before I opened my mouth. We shared everything, our room, clothes, even friends. It wasn't just brotherhood, it was partnership. But that dynamic changed after college. He stayed in our hometown in Indiana while I moved to Seattle for work. The distance made things more civil. Still friendly, still close, but not as constant. Calls turned into texts, texts into Instagram likes. You know the drill, but we always said we'd be there for the big things, especially for something like an engagement. It started with a text. Eric, I proposed to Sarah last night. She said yes. I was sitting in my apartment, mid-bite into a microwave burrito. I stared at the message like it was written in another language. No heads up that he was even planning it. No, I think I'm going to do it soon. Just a post-factum broadcast. Me, dude, that's huge. Congrats. I had no idea you were ready to pop the question. Eric, ha ha ha. Yeah, it was kind of spontaneous. Didn't want to overthink it. Okay, spontaneous or not, I was genuinely happy for him. I even asked to FaceTime so I could see the ring. Sarah flashed it with that perfect combination of excitement and awkwardness, and I congratulated them both. We joked about me giving a speech at the wedding, and Eric said, "We're doing a big engagement party soon. I'll let you know the date so you can book a flight." That was 3 months ago, and that was the last I ever heard about the party. Now, I'm not the pushy kind. If someone says, "I'll let you know," I take that at face value. I didn't want to be the annoying brother constantly asking, "When's the party? When's the party?" So I waited. 2 weeks passed, then 3. At the end of the first month, I dropped a casual message. "Any updates on the party date?" No reply. I figured maybe things were hectic. Engagements can be a whirlwind, right? Another week passed, then 2. I called him, no answer. I texted Sarah, she responded a day later with a, "Not sure yet, still finalizing things." But here's the thing. I follow Eric on Instagram. He doesn't post often, but Sarah does. And one night, while scrolling through her stories, I saw it. A photo of her in a white dress, Eric in a navy suit. A golden banner in the background read, "Eric Sarah's engagement bash." There were fairy lights, a full buffet, a band, and what looked like 100 people gathered around them, holding champagne flutes in a toast. I stared at that story, completely frozen. Was this it? The caption read, "Still buzzing from last night. So much love. #engagement party. #100 guests strong." 100 guests. No call, no text, no invite. I wasn't even tagged. Not in the main post, not in the comments, not in anything. I felt like I didn't exist. I spent the next few days spiraling through a combination of confusion and rage. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they planned it last minute. But Sarah's post said otherwise. She posted sneak peeks from weeks ago. Cake tasting for next weekend. Dress fitting for the day. Final RSVP count. 98 confirmed. There were save the date cards. Custom invites. And I wasn't even given the courtesy of a heads up. After days of mental backflips trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, I picked up the phone and called him. He picked up on the third ring. "Hey, what's up?" he said casually, like we hadn't been living in two separate realities. "You tell me," I replied. "How was the engagement party?" There was a pause. Not long, but long enough. "Oh, it was good. Kinda last minute. Sorry, meant to tell you." Meant to tell me? That sentence hit like a punch. He meant to tell me? "You promised to let me know so I could book a flight." That was 3 months ago. Yeah, things got hectic. And we figured with your work schedule and all, it might be hard for you to come anyway. You didn't even ask me. You just assumed? Another pause. "Look, a lot of people were asking about you, and I just told them you couldn't make it. Didn't want to get into it." I couldn't even speak. My heart was racing. He had told everyone I couldn't make it, like it was my choice. Like I flaked. I ended the call with something like, "Gotta go," and hung up before I lost it. For a week, I didn't talk to him. I didn't respond to texts. I didn't open any DMs from mutual friends congratulating him. I was angry, yeah, but more than that, I was hurt. This was my twin brother, the guy who shared a womb with me, and he excluded me from one of the biggest events of his life. Worse, he lied about it. And then came the final straw. One of our cousins, Jake, sent me a photo from the party. Not just any photo. It was of Eric standing next to a slide that had our childhood photos on it, baby Ethan and Eric in diapers, eating cake, blowing bubbles, hugging at our 10th birthday. Jake texted, "Man, this made me think of you. We missed you there. I can't believe work kept you away. Eric said you had to cover a big project in Europe or something. Sounded intense. Hope you're good." I read that message 3 times, jaw clenched. Europe? I hadn't even left Seattle. That's when I realized this wasn't just a slip. This wasn't an accident. It was intentional. Eric didn't want me there. I wish I could say I let it go. That I took the high road, healed, moved on. But I'm not wired that way. You mess with my trust, you lie to me and then drag my name through the mud to save face? I don't take that lightly. So no, I didn't take the high road. I took the long one, the scenic route where every turn brought a little dose of truth and karma. And by the time the wedding came around, let's just say people were very interested in my RSVP. After the engagement party betrayal, I went radio silent. Eric kept texting once a week with generic stuff. Hope work's going well. Did you see the new Lakers trade? Like we hadn't just skipped the part where he excluded his own twin from a major life event and lied about it to a room full of people. I didn't respond. My silence wasn't for drama, it was for clarity. I needed space to process what had happened, to remind myself that I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed. And then, one day, 2 months later, a white envelope showed up in my mailbox. It had golden trim, a wax seal with an embossed E and S, and a thick, fancy card inside. "You're cordially invited to the wedding of Eric Jacobs, Sarah Langley." There it was, a wedding invite. After months of ignoring me, lying about me, and pretending I was just some forgettable side character, he had the audacity to send me this. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The RSVP was printed, not handwritten, one of those mass-produced ones, but at the bottom, next to my name, someone had checked the regretfully declined box in pen and had initialed it with a small E. My jaw literally dropped. This was no accident. He'd pre-declined my RSVP for me. Like he was hoping I wouldn't notice. Like I was just a name on a list he had to pretend to invite. But this time I wasn't going to roll over and play the good little twin. No more quiet dignity. No more hoping he'd explain himself. I grabbed a black Sharpie, scratched out the decline, and circled, "Will gladly attend" in big, bold letters. I wrote underneath, "Looking forward to seeing the family." Then I mailed it, and I booked my flight. The wedding was in our hometown, a beautiful vineyard about an hour outside Indianapolis. Eric and Sarah were clearly pulling out all the stops a 4-day weekend of wine tasting, bonfires, welcome dinners, and a Sunday ceremony. My mom called me a week before and left a voicemail. She sounded weird. "Hi, honey. We got your RSVP. Just wondering if you were sure you could make it. No pressure or anything, but if work's too hectic, we'd understand." Translation, "Please don't come. You'll make things awkward." I didn't call back. I let them stew in their fake concern. Let them guess what I was planning. Because, I was planning. I showed up Thursday evening. Everyone was already at the Vineyards Lodge for the welcome dinner. I pulled up in my rental, a jet black convertible I absolutely did not need, but definitely wanted, wearing a suit and tie that said, "Yeah, I made money after college. You just never asked." As I walked in, forks clinked, conversation stopped, heads turned. "Ethan? Wait, isn't that? Yo, no way." Some of my cousins jumped up to hug me. A few of Sarah's friends looked confused, like I was an uninvited guest crashing the party, and then I spotted him. Eric, standing by the open bar, white wine in hand, frozen mid-sip. His eyes locked with mine like he'd seen a ghost. "Ethan?" he asked, walking toward me. I thought you weren't coming." I gave him a smile so fake it should have been in a museum. "You sent me the invite, didn't you?" His mouth twitched. "Yeah, but I thought you were busy, with the Europe trip and all." "What Europe trip?" He blinked. He knew I knew. I let the silence stretch. "Must have been someone else," I added with a shrug before heading toward the bar. Over the next few hours, I made my presence felt. I chatted with extended family, caught up with cousins, told funny stories from my job, and made friends with Sarah's side, the people who barely knew me. I wasn't loud or showy, just warm, genuine, and present. I wanted everyone to think, why wasn't he at the engagement party? And they did. "We missed you at the party, Ethan. Eric said you couldn't make it, some crazy work thing." "You're the twin, right? He never talks about you." Each time, I responded with a confused, raised eyebrow and a simple, huh, that's weird, I never got the date. By the end of the night, the vibe had shifted. Whispers, side eyes, people noticing that something didn't add up. Mission 1, done. Friday was wine tasting. Sarah tried to make small talk with me. Hey, glad you made it. So unexpected. Yeah, I replied. I almost didn't. Didn't want to ruin the guest count that Eric was so carefully managing. She laughed awkwardly. Then, quietly said, look, Eric didn't mean to leave you out. He was stressed. We had family flying in, the budget was tight. I flew in too, I said, on my own dime. Silence. But thanks for the invite. This vineyard's great, so inclusive. She flushed, mumbled something about wine pairings, and walked off. Saturday was the rehearsal dinner. Now, I wasn't in the wedding party, obviously, but that didn't stop me from sitting near the front, just close enough to be noticed. Eric's groomsmen were mostly his old college buddies, guys I hadn't seen in years. Most of them avoided eye contact. One came up after and whispered, Bro, he told us you ghosted him for months, said you didn't support the engagement. I chuckled. Yeah, he also told 100 people I was in Europe? The guy winced. Damn, that's cold. Colder than the wine, I replied, and walked off. Sunday was the wedding. The big day trademark. I wore the sharpest gray suit I owned, with a silver tie and a clean white pocket square. I didn't want to outshine the groom, just remind people I was supposed to stand next to him. The ceremony was beautiful, I'll admit it. The vows were sweet, the decor was classy, and when they kissed, everyone clapped. But the reception? That's where the truth came to party. It started with the slideshow. You know how weddings love to show a then and now video of the bride and groom? This one had childhood photos of Sarah and Eric, then teenage pics, college days, and at one point childhood photos of Eric and me. There was one where we were both 5 holding a frog, another in 7th grade playing basketball, then one from high school graduation arms slung over each other's shoulders. The caption said, Brothers through it all. I watched the room's expressions as the photos rolled. Everyone looked at me, then at the screen, then back, and I could feel the question floating in the air like glitter. If they were this close, why wasn't Ethan at the engagement party? Then came the speeches. One groomsman made a joke about how Eric used to be the nicer twin until he got a fiancée. People laughed. Sarah's dad welcomed me personally and said, Glad you made it, Ethan. Wouldn't be the same without the full family. Eric smiled tightly through it all. And then, my Aunt Karen, the one who always loved drama just a bit too much, leaned over to our table during dessert and said, loud enough for others to hear, So glad you're here, sweetie. I was shocked you weren't at the engagement party. Did the invite get lost in the mail? I took a long sip of my wine, then said with a soft smile, There was no invite, Aunt Karen, but they did send me the RSVP. Already checked note for me too. Isn't that thoughtful? Her eyes widened. Someone gasped. Another relative leaned in. Eric, across the room, paled. I didn't say more. I didn't have to. The whisper network did the rest. By the end of the night, the damage was done. Not by rage, not by revenge, but by presence, by simply showing up and being the version of myself they were too afraid to include. Eric and Sarah left the reception with tight smiles and hollow thanks. And the next day, my phone buzzed with texts. From cousins, from mutual friends, even from Sarah's maid of honor. Hey, Ethan. I had no idea what really happened. That was so messed up. You handled it like a pro. Honestly, you came out looking like the better man. And the best one? From our mom. Ethan, I'm sorry. We should have asked more questions. I'm glad you came. You reminded us what family really means. It's been a year now. Eric and I, still not close. I've made peace with that. Sometimes people grow up to become strangers even when they share your DNA. But I'm proud of how I handled it. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't cutting someone out. It's showing up, looking them in the eye, and letting the truth speak for itself. Update 1 week later. It's been a week since the wedding, since I showed up in that vineyard with a polite smile and let my presence do the talking. Since my twin brother Eric stood in custom tux in front of 150 people, pretending everything was normal, while knowing damn well what he'd done. And when I say the fallout was louder than the DJ's wedding playlist, I'm not kidding. Because what happens when someone plays fake for so long and then the truth shows up in a tailored suit? People talk. And this time, they weren't whispering behind my back. They were whispering behind his. It started the morning after. I had just landed back in Seattle, sitting in an Uber with a coffee I didn't ask for, but definitely needed. My phone buzzed. Aunt Karen. Ethan, I want to apologize for everything. We all believed what Eric told us. I feel sick about it. Then, my cousin Lily. Eric's trying to spin things now. Says there was a mix-up with your invite, but everyone saw you RSVP will attend. He's scrambling. Uncle Mike, proud of you for how you handled yourself. You were the classiest one there. Even Sarah's maid of honor messaged me. Sarah said they didn't want drama at the party and thought your energy might shift the mood. WTF. They made you the villain. I didn't respond to most messages. I didn't need to. I just let people come to their own conclusions. Because here's the thing about lies. They rot from the inside out. And when one lie cracks, the rest starts spilling out too. 3 days after the wedding, Eric finally texted me. Eric, can we talk? I stared at the message for a full minute before typing back. Talk about what? Eric, about everything. The party, the wedding. I want to clear the air. Now, before the wedding, I would have jumped at the chance to have this conversation. But now, I had the upper hand. I had the truth. I had the receipts. And most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. So I replied, fine. My place? Friday, 7 p.m. Friday, the confrontation. He showed up in a hoodie and jeans, hair messier than usual, no wedding ring yet. Not a great start. He stood awkwardly at my door for a second like he was debating whether to hug me. I let the silence make the decision for him. We sat in my living room. I didn't offer him a drink. I didn't offer small talk. I just waited. And finally, he sighed and said, I messed up. No grand intro. No self-justification. Just that. So I raised an eyebrow. You think? He looked down, twisting his hands. I didn't mean for it to get so bad. I let him talk, and boy, did he talk. His side of the story. According to Eric, it all started with insecurity. When he and Sarah got engaged, he knew they were doing the big party thing. They were trying to impress her family, old money types who rented yachts for birthdays and considered a 50-guest wedding intimate. Eric felt out of his league, and apparently, having me there with my better-paying job, my polished way of talking, my cool West Coast energy, his words, not mine, made him feel like a side character at his own celebration. You're always polished. People listen when you speak. You're successful and chill and funny. I didn't want to be compared. I blinked. So you erased me from the narrative entirely? I didn't erase you. I just didn't know how to include you without feeling like I'd be the second favorite. Wow. That hit hard. I never thought of myself as the better twin. Growing up, he was the confident one. He had the girlfriends, the popularity, the natural charm. I was quieter, more observant. I thought we were equals, just different. But he'd been comparing himself to me this entire time. That wasn't just sad, it was dangerous. Because that kind of quiet resentment, it festers. So you lied to everyone? Made up stories about me being in Europe? Pre-declined my RSVP? I panicked, he said, eyes glassy. I didn't think you'd show up anyway. You hadn't responded for months because you never sent me the date. I snapped. For the first time, I let my voice rise. You promised to tell me. You gave your word, and when I followed up, you ignored me. You deliberately left me out, Eric, and then you stood in front of 100 people and painted me as flaky. His jaw clenched. I know. I hate that I did that. I was selfish. I let my own insecurities screw everything up. I sat back, arms crossed. And Sarah, she was okay with this? He hesitated. That told me everything. She didn't push back. She agreed I'd feel better if it was just our immediate circles. She didn't really want to deal with twin drama. That phrase made my blood boil. So now I was drama, huh? Not a brother, not a best man, just a potential mood killer. The truth comes out. Eric went on to say that after the wedding, things blew up. Apparently, several relatives cornered him. One even asked if he and I had fallen out over money. What? Another called him out directly. You lied to us, and you lied about him. Even Sarah's family, the elite crowd, noticed something was off. Her mom supposedly asked why the brother from the photos wasn't there. And when she found out I was there, she raised an eyebrow and muttered, then why wasn't he at the party? Apparently, Eric and Sarah had fought the night after the wedding. And for once, Sarah didn't take his side. She said if I could lie to you, I could lie to her. I nodded slowly. Smart woman. He chuckled bitterly. Yeah, real smart. She went to her parents' house 2 days ago. Oof. Did I feel bad? A little. Did he deserve it? A lot. Forgiveness. Kind of. Eric looked up at me, eyes tired. I'm sorry, Ethan, really. You didn't deserve any of it. I let my ego wreck something important. I just hope we can fix it. That's the thing about apologies. They're nice, but they don't erase the impact. I appreciate the apology, I said, but it's going to take time. I get it. You didn't just lie, you rewrote me out of your life like I was some obstacle. That's not a whoops. That's a choice. He nodded, shame clear on his face. I added, you want to fix this? Then stop trying to manage the narrative. Stop trying to look good. Start being honest even when it's messy. Deal. We shook hands. Not a hug, not a dramatic reconciliation, just a beginning. 1 week later, where we stand now. Eric and I aren't back. Sarah's staying with her parents for space. My parents are now weirdly overcompensating, texting me daily and sending me photos of their cat like nothing happened. I've been invited to a family dinner next month that Eric will also attend. Jury's still out on that, but here's what's different now. For the first time, I'm not holding my tongue. I'm not hiding how I feel to keep the peace. I've spent years walking on eggshells, assuming that being the quieter twin meant being the lesser one. Not anymore. Because sometimes, showing up is only the first step. The second is taking up space. The third is never shrinking again. Update 2 weeks later. 2 weeks after that awkward living room apology, I found myself doing something I never thought I'd do again. Sitting at the same table as my twin brother with the entire family watching like hawks. Mom called it a family reset dinner. Just dinner, she said on the phone. Everyone's calmed down. I think we all need to move forward. Translation. We need to paper over the drama and pretend the walls aren't still smoldering. But sure, I agreed. Not for reconciliation, but for closure. And maybe, if we're being honest, because I wanted them to see me again. Not as the afterthought twin. Not as the guy who couldn't make it. But as the guy who had every right to be there. The setup. The dinner was at my parents' house. The same one Eric and I grew up in. The walls were the same beige. The photo frames still featured us in matching Halloween costumes. Firemen, pirates, cowboys. Only now, I was walking in with a spine straighter than ever. I wore what I call my polite armor. A tailored dark green shirt, clean black jeans, and a neutral smile. Not cold, not friendly, just unreadable. Eric was already there when I walked in. So was Sarah. Yeah, she came. Apparently, she had returned to the apartment 2 days earlier. No grand announcement. Just quietly slipped back into the narrative like nothing had happened. I gave her a nod. She gave me a tight-lipped smile like we were two coworkers who had beef at the last office party. The dinner begins. My mom tried to keep it cheerful. She served her usual roasted chicken and garlic mashed potatoes. My dad cracked old dad jokes, the kind no one laughs at but everyone tolerates. But the tension? You could cut it with a butter knife. Everyone was performing normal, and I was done performing. About halfway through, my Aunt Karen, yes, that Aunt Karen, brought up the engagement party. Still can't believe we didn't have you there, Ethan. You're usually the life of these things. I set my fork down and said calmly, clearly, I wasn't invited. Silence. My mother flinched. Sarah glanced at Eric, who was now suddenly very interested in his mashed potatoes. Eric told us you had a conflict? Aunt Karen blinked. Weren't you in Europe? Nope, I said. I was in Seattle, waiting for a date that never came. Then I got an RSVP with my name, already marked declined, and initialed. Gasps. Literal gasps. Are you serious? Aunt Karen's eyes shot toward Eric. Dead serious. Eric finally looked up. I already apologized for that, he muttered. To me, I said, but not to everyone you misled. That cracked something open, because what followed was a total unraveling. The cracks began to show. My cousin Lily leaned forward. Wait, you checked no for him? On the RSVP? I panicked, Eric snapped. I didn't want drama at the party and... So you lied instead? My dad cut in, frowning. And to us. Eric looked trapped. It was supposed to be simpler that way. I figured he wouldn't come and then... You figured? I said. You made a story up about me being in Europe, told everyone I flaked, and left me out of a family milestone. My mom tried to step in. Let's not make this a courtroom. Maybe it should have been, I said, because clearly no one held him accountable until now. The room fell silent again. Until Sarah, quiet all evening, finally spoke. I told him not to lie, she said softly. I didn't think it was fair, but he said he'd handle it. Now everyone was looking at her, and she didn't look proud, just tired. I didn't realize how deep it went, she added. And by the time I did, the story had been told. It was easier to go along. Easier. That word hung in the air like smoke. The shift. Here's what I didn't expect. This dinner wasn't about Eric anymore. It became about something deeper, about how this entire family had been enabling him. Every time he made a mess, they swept it under the rug. Every time I spoke up as a kid, they told me I was overreacting. But now, they were seeing the truth. And it was loud. We should have asked more questions, my dad said quietly. We just believed what we were told, my mom added, and that's on us. Even Aunt Karen, who usually loved being in the middle of drama, looked uncomfortable. I mean, if Ethan hadn't shown up at the wedding, we'd still be telling people he ghosted us. Eric didn't say much after that. He just sat there, shrinking in his seat. For once, he didn't fight back. He didn't spin it, because there was no spin left. The final blow. As dinner wound down, I stood to help clear plates. That's when Eric finally followed me into the kitchen. You happy now? He asked quietly. I looked at him. Really looked at him. He wasn't angry. He was ashamed. And that's when I realized I didn't hate him. I pitied him. Because no matter how much he wanted to be the favorite, he never understood that love isn't about position. It's about presence. No, I said. I'm not happy this happened. I wish it hadn't. But I am glad the truth is out. So what now? Now? I shrugged. Now we live with it. Where things stand. Sarah called me the next morning. I just wanted to say thank you. For what? For not blowing up the dinner, for being calm. You made your point, and honestly, it needed to be said. How are things with you two? Rough, she admitted. I told him if he ever tries to control the narrative like that again, we're done. No more games. She paused. I don't think he's used to being around people who don't let him hide. I smiled. Then maybe he needs more of them. As for me, I walked away from that night with something better than revenge. I walked away with clarity. I'm not the background twin. I'm not the problem. I was just the mirror no one wanted to look into because it showed what they were pretending not to see. But not anymore. Now they've seen it, and they won't unsee it. Final update. Everything I did after that last call with my parents where they asked me to get over it was calculated. Quiet, but calculated. I didn't yell, didn't rant, didn't storm social media. I didn't even message my brother after his half-baked apology, where he claimed he forgot to send me the invite, while simultaneously making it clear I was never meant to be part of that night. Instead, I made peace with the realization that this wasn't about a missed party anymore. It was about the years of being disposable, about realizing I was never truly seen as family, more like the optional character in their perfect family narrative. So, I got to work. Not revenge, that would be too easy and way too obvious. What I wanted was something better. Truth. And for once, consequences. I started small, a few conversations with mutual relatives, casually mentioning how strange it was that I never received an invite, despite my brother telling me I'd be informed. I didn't accuse, just stated facts. Let silence fill the gaps. People asked questions. A few of our cousins were surprised. Wait, weren't you on the group chat? One asked. What group chat? Turns out there was a whole WhatsApp group created for the engagement planning. I was never added. My own aunt looked visibly confused when I told her I wasn't invited. But your name was on the list? I saw it. That's why I brought you a gift. Yeah, my name was on the list for appearances, like everything in their world. Then came the kicker. One of the guests, my brother's college friend named Paul, posted a photo dump on Instagram weeks after the party. I was scrolling, sipping my coffee, when I spotted something in one of the photos. A group shot. Captioned, "Wish Jake and Serena all the love. What a beautiful night." Everyone was there. Everyone. I zoomed in and spotted it. My name. Written on a blackboard sign near the gift table, beneath the heading, "Guest who couldn't make it, but sent love from afar." Right there. Daniel Jake's twin brother couldn't fly in, but sends his blessings. I dropped my coffee. I hadn't sent anything. Not a gift, not a blessing. I hadn't even known the party happened. They lied, on record, at their own engagement. They lied about me. That was the last straw. I screenshotted it. Every photo, every comment, especially the ones from people tagging me saying things like, "Missed you, Daniel," or "Hope to see you at the wedding." I crafted one post. Calm, unemotional, factual. Just to clarify something, for those who've asked, I was never invited to the engagement party. I was told by my twin brother that I'd be given the date so I could fly in. That never happened. I wasn't on the guest list. I never sent any blessing or message. I found out through Instagram weeks later. I've stayed quiet to avoid drama, but it's been weighing on me to see people assume I was included and just didn't care. That's not the case. This is not to start a war, but to correct the narrative. I'm done pretending I was part of something I was deliberately excluded from. I didn't tag anyone, didn't throw in insults, but within 24 hours it blew up. Mutuals messaged me, old friends, extended family. Some were shocked, some apologized on behalf of not noticing. A few had the audacity to defend my brother, saying he probably had a lot on his plate. Yeah, sure. Enough on his plate to organize a 100-person event, but not enough to send a 2-sentence text. The silence from my immediate family was deafening. Until 2 days later, when my mother called. Daniel, why would you air dirty laundry online? You're humiliating your brother. I almost laughed. Humiliating him? You guys publicly said I sent blessings I never gave. You used me as a prop to make it look like we're one big, happy family. What did you expect? She went quiet, then tried the guilt card. Do you really want this to be how your relationship with Jake ends? That's when it hit me. This wasn't the end. It was just the unveiling of what had always existed beneath the surface. I told her calmly, I think the relationship with Jake ended the moment he decided the aesthetics of his engagement mattered more than actually having his twin brother there. I hung up. Days passed. No contact from Jake. But messages kept pouring in, from people who had felt something was off that night but couldn't put their finger on it. From cousins who said, honestly, this tracks. He's always been kind of performative. The final message came a week later, from Serena, his fiancée. It was a long paragraph. She apologized, profusely, said she didn't know the full story. She thought I was out of the country and had declined the invite, that Jake told her I was busy with work and didn't want to make a fuss. She said she felt sick knowing I wasn't invited, and that her family had been asking about it too, wondering where the groom's twin was. She ended the message with this. I hope this doesn't sour things forever. I know it doesn't change what happened, but I wanted you to know I would have loved for you to be there. You were missed, not just by me, but by people who truly care. I believed her, but I didn't reply. Not out of anger, just exhaustion. I didn't want to play the game anymore. I was tired of being a background character in a life I used to bend over backwards to stay relevant in. Weeks turned into a month. I moved on. Focused on work, friends, my life. My real life, the one where I'm not used as a talking point or a staged photo. Then I got the wedding invite. Yes, a real one this time. Beautiful card, custom envelope, RSVP portal, everything. It came with a personal note from Jake. Daniel, I know I screwed up. I can't explain it. I panicked. Thought maybe you wouldn't come anyway and didn't want to feel rejected. It was selfish. I was selfish. I should have asked, not assumed. Should have included you, not ghosted you. If you want to come to the wedding, I'd be honored. If not, I understand. But I don't want to move forward with this next chapter of my life knowing I never tried to make things right with the one person who's always been there even when I didn't deserve it. It took me 3 days to decide. In the end, I RSVP'd. Yes, I went to the wedding. Not to forgive, not to forget, but to show up on my terms, not theirs. I wore a navy suit, walked in like I belonged because I did. People looked surprised. Some whispered, some hugged me. Jake saw me as he was about to walk down the aisle. We made eye contact. He didn't smile, just nodded. I nodded back. And for the first time in our lives, it felt like he saw me as real. Not as decoration, not as his mirror image, but as a person, one who deserved better. I stayed for the ceremony, congratulated Serena. Then I left before the reception. No drama, no speeches, no selfies. Just peace. Sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's just showing up, alone, calm, unbothered, and letting the silence do the